My name is Aisling O'Byrne and the title of this exhibition is We Lose Sight of the Night. This exhibition is a survey show and it spans about 2 decades of work, which covers a lot of my concerns around an interest in the night sky from the point of view of a layperson and an interest in a relationship between art and science. I'm an artist that works across quite a range of media, from sculpture, where I use a lot of different materials and try and explore their physical and metaphorical properties, and also working with animation and video. And a lot of the work I make is centered around my attempts to understand phenomena that I don't understand. So I use materials and the physical properties of materials to try and understand sort of physical phenomena, like my interest in the night sky. If you think it's sort of celestial bodies that are placed in relation to each other, and gravity affects them and their relationship to each other. And in a way, this is a real kind of sculptural question, you know, bodies sitting in relation to each other, in relation to a space and in relation to time. So I try and explore this with materials, and the sculptures I make and the films I make are sort of about that attempt to understand. I don't always succeed, but maybe that's sort of where the art comes in and why I'm an artist, rather than I'm certainly not a scientist, and I'm not an astronomer, and I'm not an instrument maker. So some of the works in this show, obviously some are older works, and then some are more recent works that I made specifically for the show, but these kind of themes carried through all of the works. For example, in the Tall Gallery, I have a series of work that I suppose introduces my interest in these themes. First of all, there's a set of drawings of the night sky. It's 24 drawings in total, and then there are a double hang. So the drawings are made from a star almanac. They're not drawn from the night sky, because I live in Belfast, and Belfast has an awful lot of light pollution, so there's a huge amount of the night sky you don't see when you live in cities or in urban areas. And one of the things I'm interested in is the phenomena of light pollution. Like in Western Europe and in North America, it's estimated that maybe 80 or 90% of the population cannot see the Milky Way. It's there above us every night, but we can't see it. In cities, you can't even see them. You know, you can't even see most of the constellations. You might see the major planets and some very, very bright stars. So my attempts to learn the night sky were a series of drawings that I made over a period of a year, and they're all drawn from a star almanac. You can buy kind of star almanacs for a particular year that will show a view looking north and a view looking south of the night sky, month by month. So you'll get for January a view looking north, a view looking south, say from this part of the northern hemisphere, from Ireland and Britain. And my daughter had bought me this star almanac, and so I'm drawing from second-hand information, and it's almost like making a political point that the drawings I'm producing of the night sky, they're drawn from second-hand information because our view of the night sky is obscured due to the amount of light pollution. And I suppose I'm interested in light pollution because it's a form of pollution. It can be addressed, and it isn't that people advocating to address light pollution are saying you have to turn out every light, but it's about kind of lighting in a responsible manner and thinking about what sort of light. So for example, in cities you'll see a proliferation of loads of different types of lights, like signage, and there's traffic lights, and there's car lights, and there's street lights, and there's lights maybe that are, you know, under road services, and then there's other lights that are maybe under the city council, and then there's lights coming from building, and there's advertising, and all of these light sources are kind of, the cumulative effect is you see a yellow glow in the sky, but also the type of light we have now as well, LED lights, whilst they're more energy efficient in one sense, they're often, the light that they emit is near the white or bluer end of the spectrum, so they're emitting more light than is necessary. So there are things that can be done about light pollution, about maybe shielding a light, making sure it's only lighting what it needs to be lit, when it needs to be lit, and to the level it needs to be lit. And a lot of lighting, I suppose, is just, it ends up being beamed up into the sky and pouring up into the sky. So it's a phenomenal waste of energy in a way. And sometimes when lighting is competing so much, it's actually kind of almost glaring and blinding, and it's obscuring our view of things because there's so much lighting. So there's a lot of people doing research in this from a lot of different perspectives, from, you know, energy conservation, but also from the effect of light pollution on circadian rhythms of different ecosystems and on human circadian rhythms. So it's really interesting that this research on this is very cross-disciplinary, and there are organisations in existence that are advocating addressing light pollution and giving people advice about what they can do to address light pollution, including local authorities, architects when they're designing a scheme. So, International Dark Sky and Dark Sky Ireland will provide, support and help for people if they want kind of advice about any outdoor lighting, even outdoor lighting on your home at night, like putting things on a sensor, having particular kind of shielding at light, the colour temperature of the bulbs you're using. So it's within that context where I'm trying to kind of learn about the effects of light pollution and what can be done about it and the type of advocacy that's going on that I made these drawings, this set of drawings. So it's political that there is light pollution, and it's political that to learn the night sky you're having to draw from a star almanac. And I suppose this context also sets the tone for many other works in the show as well. For example, in the Cube Gallery, I've made a new animation, and the animation is sort of dealing or using imagery from that set of star drawings, looking at the night sky, but also it's speaking about us being pattern hunters and looking for patterns in the night sky, but also it's speaking about the idea that the stars are the ultimate recycling factories or recycling machines. Like Carl Sagan sort of famously said, we're all made of stardust, and it's, in essence, everything, all matter that we know of and all the elements that we're made of came originally from stars. When stars form the elements, and then when they go supernova, they have enough energy that they create the heavier elements, and in a supernova explosion, they explode very violently and spew all of that, those heavier elements out into the universe. So in a sense, they're populating the universe with the elements that are needed for life. So all of our origins, everything that's on Earth now, and it's a blink of an eye in terms of cosmic time. But all the elements that make up everything on Earth came originally from a very violent explosion of a star as it releases more energy and more elements. So I'm thinking as well about the ideas around sort of sustainability and cycles. So in a way, there's cycles of generations of stars that produce the heavier elements. But I was also sort of thinking about materials again, and in the Cube Gallery where I have the new animation, there's also something like these sculptures that are like star-like forms, but they're made of old clothes. So they're made of old clothes that are just, they were too worn to give to second-hand shops, and they're stuffed with old clothes and stuffing that's been recycled and repurposed from other forms. I'm quite interested in using found materials and repurposing them where possible, so that you maybe give something a new and an unexpected sort of life. And in a way, they become sort of portraits as well, because the stars are made from sets of trousers belong to me, my family members, my kids, that were just worn to the point of, they've seen a life, if you like, and then they have this other life that they become almost sort of figurative things as well. And it was a way for me to try and think about that idea that out of the stars came sort of the life forms that we know of now on this planet. Another piece that I have made in my attempt to try and understand the movement, if you like, of the celestial spheres is it's a drawing on a glass table of a planosphere. And a planosphere is a kind of simple, I suppose it's like a scientific instrument where it's two discs, one on top of the other, and they're translucent, and one contains information about the time of the year, the time of day, and it can rotate, and the one below has an image of the night sky, and as you turn the top layer, you can kind of see what the night sky is doing on a particular night. So I try to replicate this handheld kind of instrument that maybe is used to teach children the night sky, or teach people who are just starting to learn the night sky how it works. I tried to replicate this in a glass table planosphere in the tall gallery, and basically I've two sheets of glass, one on top of the other, with a lazy Susan mechanism in the middle that allows the top layer of glass to be rotated. So in a way there's a possibility for the audience to interact so that we can move and check what the night sky will be doing on a particular date. And again, I should say that what I've done, it's sort of hand-drawn on the glass. It's not a scientific instrument. It's not scientifically accurate, but I took my cue from a scientific instrument to make this drawing. But it still shows the principle and the mechanism by which different parts of the night sky are visible at different times of year, because our view of the night sky is dependent on where our globe Earth is in relation to its orbit around the sun, which is our nearest star. Then in the tall part of the tall gallery, I've tried to use the height of the gallery there to kind of encourage the viewer to look up. So, and just think about that idea of looking up. You know, we're used to looking down or looking straight ahead, but looking up, there's a projection on the ceiling of the tall part of the tall gallery, and the projection is an animation of a telescope dome gradually opening to reveal a view of the night sky. And the animation I made was from, some photographs I took. I was privileged enough to be able to work with astronomers in Armagh Observatory who supported me with a lot of work I've done over the years, and with my attempts to understand some of this astronomical and scientific information. So I was privileged enough to get a view inside one of their telescope domes in the Armagh Observatory, and to kind of look at the mechanism by which this optical instrument, the dome opened, which is a piece of engineering in itself, and then how the instrument then rotates and is able to kind of take a view of the night sky. So the animation is sort of a simplification of this, but it encourages you to kind of look up and realize that there's a huge canopy of stars out there just above our heads. And then there's another one of these table-like devices that works on the lazy Susan mechanism in that space that allows you to kind of consider the phases of the moon over the course of the month, because obviously the view we have of the moon is dependent on where we are in the lunar cycle. The lunar cycle generally lasts about 28 days. So sometimes we see a full moon, sometimes we see a quarter moon, a half moon, a crescent, and sometimes we just see a new moon, so we don't even see the moon, or we might see just the faintest line indicating its presence. So the moon goes through phases and cycles, and again, ancient people would have used cycles of the moon by which to kind of decide, what time of year to lay particular crops. And there's quite evocative names for different types of full moon at different types of the year as well. So I'm kind of interested in, working with this imagery to encourage people maybe to try and think about this. And the other thing about the moon as well, even when you live in a very light polluted city, one thing you can see in the night sky if you've got a clear night is you will see the moon. To that end as well, I've been making kind of lunar zines and lunar calendars that I was giving out monthly. So just to remind people to look up and, to look up and to consider you can even see the moon, but to maybe become aware of what you can't see as well. In the upper gallery, I've made a work particularly for that space, and it was a really interesting challenge for me as an artist. How do you kind of make a work that sort of occupies that space? So the piece is called The Initial Conditions, and the piece is me trying to kind of think about what were the initial conditions that led to, I suppose, to the universe that we see now. And we've heard the Big Bang Theory described, where something infinitesimally small exploded violently and expanded extremely rapidly to give us everything we see now. I suppose a thing about looking back at the night sky, when you're looking at the night sky, you're often actually looking back in time, because the light we're seeing from stars takes different time to travel to us depending on their distance from us. So the further they are, the longer the light takes to travel to us. So actually we're looking at that particular star. The light from it has taken 1,000 years to light our eyes. So I'm quite interested in this asynchronous time, and then how this sort of structure would be described from from the Big Bang, or whatever happened before the Big Bang, to where we are now. So I've used kind of an easel, and I'm interested in that idea of knowledge and sharing knowledge, and how knowledge is formed, and knowledge is formed through experimentation and trial, and through asking questions, and through making mistakes as well. So I've tried to build a structure that seems to emanate from this easel, and the structure is made from lots of strips of recycled timber, and I've tried to sort of span, you know, a lot of the length of the gallery with the kind of inference that it could kind of keep going. And I've used timbers to try and span this kind of conical, to make this conical structure that seems to emanate from the easel. And within that conical structure, and it's suspended as well from the ceiling, and it's held under tension. You know, there's a lot of physical forces at play, and it's quite precarious as well, in that it could tip over, or it looks like it's on the verge of collapse, or it looks like it's precariously made. And in a way, all of this is intentional, because it's like, what are the chances of life? It's kind of incredible that we're here to sort of think about it. And, you know, the parameters of the conditions that give life are so specific, but maybe just so randomly accidental. So I find it really interesting to think about, you know, the scale of all this in relation to kind of our insignificance, but the fact that we're here to question it. Also, you know, the piece being kind of dependent on the space for how it's suspended in the space, and having a relationship with the space, that the space becomes part of the field of its existence. And then there are particular wee motifs and things trapped in it, maybe, that let you think about maybe what happened at particular times in the evolution of the universe. And I suppose it refers to other things too, like Tatlin's Tower to the Third International, which was kind of an architectural hypothetical structure that was built to think about kind of revolutions and rotations and change over time. And I'm also kind of thinking about this idea, it looks like a loudhailer as well. So it's not specifically one thing, but I'm trying to think about a lot of things as I make this sculpture. And I sort of was making it in the studio, or trying to figure out how to make it in the studio, but the challenge came to actually have a long install period here and be able to kind of make it in the space. So there was a lot of problem solving that had to be done here in the space, which I really enjoy, that sort of part of exhibition making. In the back part of the upper gallery, which sort of is like a footnote in the gallery in a sense, you walk around a corner to this other space at the very back of the gallery once you've made your way down the length of the gallery. I've a series of drawings in there, and they're drawings based on a glossary of terminology compiled by International Dark Sky that cover technical terms to do with kind of light and light pollution. So again, I was kind of trying to make these drawings of the text itself to try and understand some of these terms, some of which I do, some of which I don't. But that idea of working, you know, A, B, C, through the alphabet of these terms, there's kind of a logic through working through them. So over the COVID period, actually, I made this series of drawings, and the way I've drawn them is I would write the word luminaire, and then I would draw a series of lines around the word luminaire that become like ordnance survey lines, or they become like lines of resonance that emanate from the word. And they kind of these lines intersect with each other, so it feels like there's an energy, hopefully it feels like there's an energy emanating from each of these words, or that it has its own type of sort of force field. So they're quite small, quite intense drawings, and I think there's 94 of them in total. And I just went with the logic of Dark Sky International had produced a glossary of terms, and I tried to make a drawing dedicated to each term. And that idea that the time spent making the drawing maybe would help me understand the term a bit more. Sometimes this worked, sometimes it didn't work. Along with the works that feature in the upper and tall gallery, there's a screening of some older film works in the sunken gallery. Amongst those film works are pieces that I've done in collaboration with astronomers from Armagh Observatory, from whom I learned a huge amount. And some of the works take the form of interviews with astronomers there, where I'm showing them imagery that marks my attempt to understand particular scientific phenomena, and then where they're actually pointing me to the imagery might well describe other phenomena that I had never heard of before. So it becomes an interesting back and forth conversation where I'm kind of trying to understand things I don't understand, and my lack of understanding is actually through kind of the kind facilitation of these people opening doors to other things that I was completely unaware of, sending me down another wormhole of kind of layperson artist inquiry.